MrBeast and Amazon are being sued over the Beast games. 5 contestants from the MrBeast games are filing a class action lawsuit, alleging failure to prevent SH, failing to pay minimum wage, and failure to provide medical care, food, and basic hygiene for the participants. There has been an absolute avalanche of drama and controversy when it comes to MrBeast and his empire, which I'm sure most of you watching this have already heard plenty about it. But as of recently, regarding the MrBeast games, it seems like something is actually being done about the alleged mistreatment of their participants that we've previously heard about through Rosanna Pansino's videos. I want to give a brief summary of the most notable parts to me about the lawsuit and what this could mean for MrBeast and the people who participated in the MrBeast games. So to start off, outside of the lawsuit, there are some statements that were made by the contestants as well as their attorneys that can set the mood for us real quick. One of the contestants said, "I expected to be challenged, but I didn't think I would be treated like nothing less than nothing." Another fun one, this time by the attorney, several contestants ending up hospitalized, while others reported suffering physical and mental complications while being subjected to chronic mistreatment, degradation, and, for the female contestants, hostile working conditions. Participants entered into contracts and they were promised compensation for their services. Their expectation of compensation, along with them being consistently under the control and supervision of the production staff, makes them employees under California law. As such, they were entitled to and denied certain protections. And when you add to that the extreme neglect, degradation, harassment, and inhuman conditions, it's quite simply a massive dereliction of duty for which the defendants must and will now be held accountable. So right off the bat, we're coming in hot. Now we're going to be looking at what's inside the lawsuit. But because I don't want to make this video really long and honestly really boring, I'm going to just jump around and only mention the things I think are most important. The introduction, which will be our main focus, explains to the court who MrBeast is, what he does, the connections he has, the money he has, and how essentially he has unlimited resources for his productions. They specifically make this a focus point in the document and then follow it up with, unfortunately, the supposedly magnanimous MrBeast did not want to use the alleged unconstrained resources to provide fair wages or even bare minimum legal working conditions to the contestants whose labor comprised the core commercial value of Beast games. Instead, defendants employed superior bargaining power to coerce the contestants to sign unconscionable contracts with illegal terms and illusionary obligations, and also knowingly mischaracterized the contestants to avoid defendants' employment obligations under California law. Essentially, the contestants are alleging that they were coerced into signing these illegal contracts so that MrBeast and Amazon could skimp out on paying fair wages, which you don't really want to do that in California. I feel like they're pretty strict about their labor laws, and the contestants and attorneys are trying to make a case of how they were employees. They were employed by MrBeast, which we'll see later on in this video. They weren't just participants in some challenge, they were employees. Defendants knowingly misclassified the contestants in part to obtain a tax credit for $2,252,523 from the state of Nevada, which defendants on information and belief would not have received if they had disclosed the production's actual labor costs, including the significant labor of the contestants in the budget they presented to the Nevada Film Commission with their tax credit application. So here they're claiming that MrBeast did a bunch of shady business to get away with paying taxes and other fees, which unfortunately is not something new in the business world. And in the case of MrBeast, it led to the mistreatment of their contestants. Defendants further relied on the misclassification as a false justification to avoid paying employment taxes and to spare the production the cost of implementing various employment protections required under California law, including minimum wages, overtime, mandatory meal and rest breaks, workers' compensation benefits, itemized wage statements, and timely payment of wages and reimbursements, among other things. Defendants then subjected the contestants to unreasonable, unsafe, and unlawful employment conditions. Defendants began the Beast games, where the contestants were held under strict control and surveillance for days on end. During the Beast games engagement, the on-set production staff maintained the strictest control over the contestants, denying them all privacy and access to the outside world. The contestants were fed sporadically and sparsely. They were not given an adequate access to hygienic products or medical care. The New York Times reported that over a dozen people who participated in the first installment of Beast Games said they had not received adequate food or medical care, and that some competitors had suffered injuries from the physical challenges. The female contestants particularly and collectively suffered as a result of defendants' actions. The Beast Games work environment systematically fostered a culture of misogyny and sexism, while production staff did nothing. From everything we've heard of in the past when it comes to working at MrBeast and the work culture, it is not surprising at all to see mistreatment of employees as well as specifically the female participants. As for the rest of the document, it essentially expands upon everything in the introduction, but also a lot of it is blacked out due to this being an ongoing case, probably with a ton of privacy contracts entangled into it. So there are only a few more notable things about the lawsuit. For example, Mr. Donaldson made public statements online that he had unconstrained control over Beast Games, and Donaldson had established a pattern of practice of compensating everyone who competes in the MrBeast competitions, win or lose, even if they competed for only 5 minutes. The contestants were told that if they accepted the opportunity to work for the defendants, they would have to be available for blank. I'm assuming this is a certain period of time, and while they were working for defendants, they would not be able to accept any other employment. As I mentioned earlier, that the contestants were employees, therefore MrBeast and Amazon needed to abide by the employment laws of California. Defendants exercised total control over the manner, means, and timing of the work performed by the contestants by controlling essentially every aspect of their lives during the production of the show. This included, but is not limited to, and then everything's blacked out, but there are 7 things on that list. 7 points of abuse and control. That doesn't sound very good. Another thing that was interesting about the lawsuit was that a tweet by Rosanna was actually cited in the documents. There's a couple more statements in the document that expand upon the work environment. It says here, production defendants created working conditions that jeopardized the safety of workers, including not providing sufficient food or drink, taking away their access to blank. Could only assume what that means. Not having adequate medical staff on site and not providing reasonable medical care, forcing them not to sleep, and forcing them to participate in games that unreasonably risked physical and mental injury. Production defendants additionally created a toxic and hostile work environment for, in particular, the female contestants who suffered blank, as well as sexual harassment throughout the production, as more fully detailed below, which was not only noticed but allowed, and even blank, kind of guessing that word is encouraged, by the production defendants. And apparently this was allowed because of marching orders from the top. They also cite here the MrBeast Employee Handbook, How to Succeed in MrBeast Production, which is something I actually saw in a different YouTube video. The handbook states that it's okay for boys to be childish, and if talent wants to draw a dick on the whiteboard in the video or do something stupid, let them. Really do everything you can to empower the boys when filming and help them make content. Help them be idiots. Essentially, his handbook is just boys will be boys, which is just a horrible way to excuse shitty behavior from men, and unfortunately it seems to have been fueling the misogynistic fire that has been the work culture of MrBeast. There's also a stupid amount of redacted information in the document that I'm assuming is eyewitness testimonies about the workplace environment, because it is then followed up by, at all relevant times on information and belief, defendants management up to and including senior management and ownership had actual and or constructive notice that the violence and sexual harassment detailed was occurring within the workplace. So clearly it seems like, according to these documents, everyone within the MrBeast workplace, the higher ups, they were all aware of all the shitty situations that were going on and not doing anything about it. There's not too much more to note after that. MrBeast did allegedly offer therapy to contestants, which is like, you gotta be a little self-aware for that, right? But yeah, that's essentially all the juice of the lawsuit. Do I think this lawsuit will actually go anywhere? Kind of. Yes, I do believe that MrBeast is gonna take a fat L, but maybe not exactly a public one or as big as we'd hope. I think it's safe to assume that this lawsuit will be handled behind closed doors, most likely with some sort of payment settlement and some NDAs, so that MrBeast doesn't have to publicly admit to anything or try and fight something like this, because from his perspective, this will just make everything an even harder PR nightmare than it already is. Which again, unfortunately means that this will probably be settled outside of court. But fortunately for us, this has already broken into the mainstream, so whether or not this lawsuit actually goes anywhere, everyone's hearing about it, and more people are becoming aware of the lawsuit and all the problems within the MrBeast company. And by the end of it, maybe he can take a bigger hit than he has, do some actual damage to the brand. He's already been losing smaller sponsors, like Ludwig's company, but something that would really do some damage is Amazon dropping him, which from what's been going on has surprisingly not happened yet. That's kind of my thoughts on it. What do you guys think? Do you think that be able to come back from this? Low-key probably, but maybe he'll take some more damage. I don't know. Hopefully the contestants get some compensation for their mistreatment. And yeah, there will be more updates. I'd love to know what you guys think. Leave it in the comments. Toodles.